Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Madison Charlton from MLC Tech. Now earlier this month at CES, AMD announced its Ryzen 8000G line of APUs, packed full of Zen 4 cores and RDNA-free graphics. And this product line was split into two different types of models, that being two higher end models based on Phoenix 1 dies, and the other two APUs were based on the Phoenix 2 dies for the more entry level chips. But now we have further details on these APUs, which might lead to some disappointment to some buyers out there, with it being reported the Phoenix 2 chips could support much lower SSD speeds and GPU performance compared to the higher tier counterparts. So sit back and relax as we dive into some further details of the Ryzen 8000G line of APUs. So these further details on AMD's new line of APUs come courtesy of Gigabyte in a publication for its new line of ITX motherboards, and it reveals that the Phoenix 2 chips in the lineup, that being the Ryzen 5 8500G and the Ryzen 3 8300G, will only offer PCI 4.0 but up to 4 lanes of functionality for discrete graphics cards, whereas the Phoenix 1 APUs, that being the Ryzen 7 8700G and the Ryzen 5 8600G, will support up to 8 lanes of PCI 4. And this is exactly the same story when it comes to the lanes allocated for the M.2 drives, which will be cut down yet again from the 4 lanes of PCI 4.0 that we'll get in the Phoenix 1 chips. And on the Phoenix 2, we're expected to only have 2 lanes of PCI 4.0 connectivity, which this means it's virtually half in potential SSD performance that you can get on this platform. This means the 2 lower end APUs will only be able to run a PCI 4.0 SSD with only 2 lanes instead of 4. And if you choose to use a discrete GPU for this APU, it means that this GPU will only be able to have 4 lanes of PCI connectivity. And it's also important to note that unlike Ryzen 7000, none of these APUs will support PCIe 5.0. So what effects will this actually have on these APUs? While having support for fewer PCI lanes is expected to have quite a negative impact on SSD speeds and discrete GPU performance, especially if you're looking to install a much higher end GPU into your system. However, it shouldn't be an issue if for whatever reason you're choosing to put an entry level graphics card into your system, with many of these lower end entry level GPUs not saturating the full bandwidth of all these PCI lanes anyway, so you should be able to get away with it without any noticeable performance degradation. But at the same time, if you're buying one of these APUs, the likelihood of you buying an entry-level GPU to pair with one of these APUs is very unlikely, as you essentially already have an entry-level GPU already packaged onto your APU. Which in a way I am sort of disappointed to, but also sort of not. Now the whole idea of APUs a few generations ago would be that you would buy something like, let's say, an AMD A10 APU, where the integrated graphics could get you by for a while, while also offering decent level of CPU performance. And the idea of those APUs is that it would be a temporary thing. So you'll just get the APU to just bide your time until you've saved enough money to buy a new GPU, and it could run this new GPU at full speed, which I thought was a pretty good thing for people on a budget, how they could get up and running, play some games, and then upgrade to higher end graphics when they've built up enough budget to afford the upgrade. Whereas the direction AMD is going for these APUs is more of that these APUs are the standalone package, where they're gearing up these APUs to not really be the path of upgrading to dedicated GPUs, whereas it's more of, yes, you're buying this APU for the graphics and graphics alone, and you want a small system with only one APU that can do it all, which I can sort of understand the direction AMD is going in when it comes to that approach, as these APUs are gearing up to be very impressive. But I think having the flexibility for users to take that approach to buy these APUs to get by with gaming, then upgrade to higher end graphics later on, I still think that would have been a good approach to AMD, because it gives people flexibility onto how they use these APUs. But I think having the flexibility of having more PCIe lanes included with these APUs would have been a great thing to see. But regardless of the approach AMD goes to upgrading your GPU, I think the most significant thing when it comes to this story is how it could potentially cap SSD performance. Now, in the modern world of computing, everyone uses M.2 NVMe SSDs, especially as these APUs are probably more tailored for more compact, small space, low powered systems. So I think it is disappointing that AMD did take this approach to cap the M.2 lanes, as having more PCIe based storage is a good thing, and being able to run it even faster is a good thing. And having the performance and the amount of M.2 drives in the system capped is a bit of a disappointing thing to see from AMD. But on the flip side, you could potentially argue that this is how they've been able to save some costs, and that's why we've seen such impressive pricing for this line of APUs. As I mentioned in my video when I first covered the announcement of these APUs, having an APU that's comparable in performance to an i5 13400 and a full desktop 1650 GPU, I thought was very impressive, and for around $300, I was absolutely amazed. So you could argue that them taking this approach is how they've been able to bring these APUs for such an appealing price. But at the same time, I'm still very much of the mindset of flexibility is how you entice more people to buy your products. So with this line of APUs, could be isolating themselves from a few potential buyers who may be wanting to buy these APUs until they can afford a higher end dedicated GPU. So they could be isolating those type of buyers. But at the end of the day, I am a strong advocate for more flexibility with how we use our computer components. And having a cap on the amount of PCI lanes that a CPU can offer does significantly reduce the flexibility of use cases of these APUs. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below around this topic. Are you disappointed to see AMD take this approach when it comes to these APUs in the amount of PCI lanes they have included? Are you the type of person who likes to buy APUs like this with the hopes of upgrading to a full-blown dedicated GPU later down the line? Anyway, I have been Madison Charlton from MLC Tech. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you like this video in any way, shape or form, make sure to give it a like and maybe subscribe for more content like this in the future. Anyway, thank you once again for watching, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Goodbye for now.